the early days of the internet, websites competed with each other for your attention. They wanted your clicks, your eyeballs. Each new visitor to a website was an achievement. Well, things have changed. The battlefield may be the same, but the war is now being fought for, guess what? Your money. And fighting this battle the hardest is the newspaper industry. For years, the print publications watched helplessly as the internet ate into their market. Over the past 2 years, however, newspapers have been fighting back. They've barricaded their websites behind paywalls. If you want to read, you've got to pay. The Listening Post has been tracking this story since July 2010, when the Times of London set up its paywall. It's been 2 years, and there are now numerous newspaper sites charging for access. The Listening Post's Flo Phillips now on who is winning the online war.
Paywall. 2 words, both carrying negative connotations, put together by a desperate news industry trying to stay afloat. No newspaper is exempt, not even institutions like the Times of London.
2.5 years ago, we were looking at the future for where we were going to go as a digital company. At the time, we had about 20 million unique users a month coming and reading our stuff. And we weren't making enough money from that to fund the sports desk. It's very, very difficult to take that kind of bulk traffic that you get for free online and turn that into significant amounts of money through straightforward advertising. So we looked at what we were doing and we said another way to do it would be to have a much closer relationship with your readers.
For the Times, that much closer relationship is actually a euphemism for "we'll take your money." So on the 1st of July 2010, Rupert Murdoch erected what has become known as the hard paywall. It's impenetrable, a non-permeable wall that blocks all access to the Times' online content. And it sends a pretty simple message.
If you want to read what the Times is doing, you have to pay. $3 a week gets you access to the website and the mobile, and around $6 a week gets you the website, the mobile and the iPad. When we were talking about this at the start, people said this is going to be a disaster, there's going to be nobody there, nobody's going to sign up. That clearly has not happened. We've clearly shown that you can find a market for high quality news amongst people in Britain and the rest of the world.
The Times of London system is a classic paywall. They say if you don't pay us any money, we won't show you any content. And as usually happens when those things are implemented, they lost well over 90% of their readership.
90%? Not exactly what one would call a triumph. Other newspapers, including major American dailies like the New York Times, rejected Murdoch's hard paywall approach. They've built a different kind of wall, and they market it another way by definitely not calling it a paywall.
The New York Times calls it a digital subscription service. The LA Times, which has implemented something similar, calls it a membership service. And there the logic is, if you don't pay us, we won't show you articles above a certain threshold. But everybody below that threshold isn't even asked to pay. The practical effect of that is that well over 90% of the New York Times and LA Times audience doesn't pay, but still sees the content.
So this model, disguised as a digital subscription service, or fancier still, a membership service, is known as the metered paywall. Readers get a number of free links to any article, just enough to get them hooked, and then bam, they hit the wall. But by that point, papers are hoping news junkies will be addicted and just pay up.
New York Times obviously did a lot of things right, and they probably correctly found the balance between keeping the number of readers and getting revenues from some of them. I think this is a great model, it's working very well for them. The problem we are encountering is that most of the media are saying, unfortunately, we are not the New York Times.
But there are other publications that have been able to make paywalls work, although they're in a slightly different category. The Financial Times, along with other economic publications like the Wall Street Journal or The Economist, have specialised content that individuals or the companies they work for are willing to pay for.
We've seen a big shift in attitudes towards paywalls over the past couple of years. We have now around 300,000 paying digital subscribers. We're now at the point where we have more digital subscribers than we do print circulation. That simply wouldn't be the case if we were operating in a world where people weren't willing to pay for content online.
But with products like the FT, many people see an investment. It's worth paying money to make money.
There are a lot of people who have said that the FT's pay model has been successful really just because we're a niche publication, because our content is so specialist that people have to come to us for it. I think that that's wrong. You've got something which is unique, which is differentiated, which is high quality, then you've got a business. And that's what the Financial Times has always been about.
So how do you go about charging for content if you don't have a big name like the New York Times or a niche product like the FT? You could try the Nationwide Paywall. The idea came out of Slovakia, and it's basically the Great Wall of paywalls. You build a huge wall around not just one publication in the country, but all of them.
The core idea of our Piano system is that we provide single login and single payment to access all the premium content in the country, or most of the premium content. It's one single subscription, very similar to the cable TV subscription, where you buy one package and you get convenient access to everything. So we are trying to lower the mental cost or the transaction cost for the paying for the content, because we know there are a lot of people who understand the value and are willing to pay, but in reality were not paying until now because it was not convenient enough and it was just not easy enough to pay.
I think Piano Media's model's interesting, the idea of having a kind of national subscription service for newspapers. To some extent it would be a nice idea to say, what if all our newspapers were all under one banner? But I think it's not a terribly realistic model.
Not realistic, because some news markets are more cutthroat than others. Slovakia has just 5 major daily newspapers. Can anyone see the UK's ferociously competitive tabloids, or the hundreds of papers in the US, all gathering together under one shared paywall? News consumers are either going to have to pay up, or find a way to get around the wall.
There's nothing ideological about what we're doing. We're not doing this to make some kind of political point. We're doing this to secure the future of our journalism.
Paywalls would be great if they worked. My objection to them has always been that they don't work. That when you implement a paywall, it's easy to get 2% of the audience to pay, but it turns out to be impossible not to lose 98% of your advertising base. And so, just as a practical matter, if the industry retreats behind paywalls, it doesn't just fail to save the people who are trying to implement these things. It also pulls all of that material out of the public sphere, which is where journalism has always mattered. So I think paywalls are both not economic salvation for the people who want to implement them, and also aren't good for the things that we rely on journalism for as a service to democracy.
It's nearly 3 years in, and the jury is still out. To paywall or not to paywall? That's the pressing question.